Hello everyone and welcome to PlottyBot. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use PlottyBot in order to write your books. Let's get started. So the first thing we see is book title, which is How to Love Yourself. We have our subtitle, and we also have our description. So I'm going to go over to the brief, copy and paste. Okay. Now please keep in mind that the book title, the subtitle, and the description are merely used to give Plotty the context as to what your book is going to be about. So for example, in the description, if I had written theoretical insights plus 50 practical exercises, Plotty is not going to write these exercises. No, this is something that will be included in the index. Also, before we continue, I just want to point out that along the way, you will see helpful video guides. So click on them and they will give you more in-depth tips on how to better write your book. Let's continue. Book language. So today's book will be written in US English, but as you can see, there are many other options. Yes. Suppose I want the final product to be Polish. So I click on Polish, so the brief will remain in English, but the final product will be whatever language I specify. Reader profile. So if you'll notice, we have an automatic and we have a manual option. The recommended option is manual, and the reason why is because this allows you to better tell Plotty as to who your reader profile is. You can do the automatic option. However, at that point, you are telling Plotty that you wanted to guess as to who your reader profile is. No, it's better to be specific. For this particular book, our reader is between 30 and 50, female, beginner, highly educated. We have our personality, interests, lifestyle, financial profile, goals, and pain points. Moving on, we have the writing style. For this particular book, we've decided that motivational is better. However, if we wanted to, we could tell Plotty exactly who we wanted to emulate. So we could emulate Julia Cameron in this particular niche, or if we wanted to write something more in the style of J.K. Rowling, you could do that too. But for today, we're going to stick with motivational. Practical elements. So this book does in fact contain exercises. So we're going to hit yes. Do you want to specify a unique layout for the exercises? Absolutely, yes. So by putting these instructions here, each exercise is going to follow these guidelines. Pictures, this book does in fact contain pictures. We're going to hit yes. We want digital illustrations. And here we move on to the most important part of the whole process, and this is the table of contents. So once again, we have the automatic or we have the manual option. Again, if you want to do the automatic option, you can. However, it's better to be specific. And the reason why is because if we do manual, then we can better tell Plotty exactly what we want in our book. And this also reflects our study of the customer avatar. Okay, let's create our index. So we start with chapter 1. We're going to copy and paste that. We hit add subchapter, copy and paste, okay. Now, when you're creating your table of content, it is better if you tell it that this is chapter 1, okay? So I've done just that. Chapter 2. Now, if you'll notice here, I have selected title only, and this is really important. If you've decided that you only want this part right here to only be introductory, if you only want Plotty to write these specific words, then you hit title only. Because if you don't, then Plotty is going to write an entire section based on the content that you give it here, okay? This also is good practice because if you do not want repetition, in other words, if you don't want the same concepts or words to be repeated here and also in the subchapter, then it's good to hit title only. This also eliminates also on the word count. Speaking of which, if we go up to the top of the page, we will notice a word estimate, okay? So as you type more words, as you add more chapters and subchapters, this will increase as well as the price, okay? Now for this particular chapter, I've decided that I need a subchapter. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the first subchapter, add subchapter, copy and paste, and there we go. Now, in order to distinguish between the subchapter and the subchapters, it's actually quite easy. If we look at the subchapters, this is in bold print, whereas the subchapters are not in bold. Not only that, but if we look closely, we will see that this bar is a bit more inward as compared to the subchapter. Now, if we've decided that this maybe should be the first chapter and we want to move it up, we can do just that. We can hit move up, okay? And this has taken the place of the first chapter. However, if we have decided that we want it back where it was, we hit move down, okay? We can also do this as we add more chapters. If we want this to be the last one, we can keep hitting move down until it is the last chapter. We also have the option of removing the entire chapter. So if we do that, this will remove the entire chapter too, but we can also remove just the subchapter or the subchapters. Okay, we now have our finished table of contents. We have chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Also, if we notice up top, we have our estimated word count and we have our price, which has gone up because I have added more content. The last thing we're going to do is customize the document. So we have our book dimensions. We have various options here, but for today, we're going to stick with 8.5 by 11. We also have different formatting options. We can choose the text font, we can choose the heading, text size, and line spacing. Let's create our book. Okay, so after Plotty has finished writing your book, you have the possibility of going to the editor, and that's where we are right now. So the editor is a chance to refine the writing of the text generated. To do this, select the text and specify the details of your modification, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So, for example, I have seen something in chapter 3 which I think needs to be modified. I'm not happy with how it came out. So I'm going to go down to chapter 3. Yes, understanding vulnerability. I've decided that this section here is not deep enough. I want it to write more. So I select it, and then I'm going to tell Plotty exactly what I want it to do. So for this particular one, I want it to go more in depth, but I can also write expand. I could also write various other things. But for today, we're just going to write go more in depth. Okay. Now, I have selected a small amount of text, so this shouldn't take too long. But obviously, the more text that you select, the more it's going to take Plotty to make the modifications, okay? So let's hit more in depth. Let's hit edit. We will let Plotty do its thing. It's going to take a few seconds, so let's wait. As we wait, please keep in mind that Plotty is capable of making other modifications. But for this one in particular, we see on the left the original text, and on the right we see the modification. So we look at it. If we like it, we can replace it. If not, we can simply cancel and try again. However, I've decided that this is okay, so I'm going to replace it. And here we see the expanded text. Now, as I was saying before, Plotty is capable of doing more things in the editor. So for example, if this book were a recipe book for diabetics, I could make some changes there as well. If I see a recipe which I think has maybe too much sugar or something which is not good for diabetics, I can select the recipe and I can ask it to maybe replace the sugar with something which is a bit healthier. So that's also an option. Anyway, that's going to do it for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Good luck and happy publishing. Goodbye.